aware that in the next, just after the day after tomorrow, there is a big event within the National Resistance Party. That is the political party that is also having its primaries this Friday. But we know there are so many issues happening within the NRM party. Good morning to you. Thank you for watching Morning at NTV. This is Stephen Mbide on Fefeswe Chibuga coming to you live from Bugolobi. And to help me navigate through these issues that are happening around the NRM party is none other than Honorable Emmanuel Maladombo, who is the director of Information, Communication and Publicity within NRM, but also a former member of parliament for Bunyore County East. Good morning to you, Honorable.
Good morning, viewers.
I request you hold the microphone.
Good morning, our viewers, and it's a pleasure for me to be here with NTV and to interact with the public that is currently watching us.
Honorable, by now you should be in the final stages of organizing these primaries that we are seeing happening on Friday, but already signs show that all is not well. In different parts of the country, many people, many candidates and their members or supporters are they are already showing signs of violence, intimidation, and voter bribery. What's going on? What's wrong within your party?
First and foremost, I want to tell you and inform our listeners that the NRM elections are bigger than the national elections by way of number of polling centers and by the way of the nature and magnitude and the way they are arranged. Just because of that alone, the hype becomes so big in the country. And I want to tell you that all is set. The Electoral Commission, the NRM Electoral Commission is set. The materials have been procured and distributed to the respective areas. The register update has been ongoing. And we have had some cases of violence in some selected areas, but the security has been notified, and the guidelines have been specifically raised to say if anybody or any culprit is got, the consequences will be dire.
You're threatening about these consequences, but at least we've seen these pockets happening in Uganda, in the western side of the country, in the eastern, but still some are arrested and the violence continues, intimidation continues. What's wrong within your party?
Well, people know that in many areas in Uganda, once somebody has won the NRM primaries, it is almost a fait accompli.
Done deal.
It's a done deal. Once you go through the NRM primaries, then the subsequent elections becomes more of a formality, because NRM is the mass party and it is loved and honored in many places of the country. So almost every candidate tries as much as possible to win over the voters during the primaries. Unfortunately, others plan not only to win in the orthodox manner, but also others try to plan unorthodox means. Others threaten their opponents. Others wish to use violence. Others wish to use outright robbery, either falsification of declaration forms or previously they have been staffing. The reason why the Delegates Conference, under the advice of the National Chairman, President Yoweri Museveni, decided to amend the Constitution, and they said, let the elections be done by lining. Because when you line, you count who is behind your back, and everybody is seeing. And that should answer the problems which we faced in the previous elections.
You mean the 2015 primaries, when you had a lot of violence? I know that you were also one of the victims of what happened during the 2015 primaries, where there was a massive voter bribery, intimidation, and violence.
By the time the national chairman and the Central Executive Committee takes a decision that the Constitution must be amended to create sanity, this was an acknowledgement that the way things were done at that time left a lot to be desired. This was a public acknowledgement, and the chairman guided us so well, and the Constitution was amended. The only problem I'm seeing right now is the attempt to falsify the registers. But I think this one is going to be addressed by the chairman himself, But where the registers have been displayed and people have been able to either add or ensure that their names do exist, the voting should continue without any interference or without any problem.
Yes, but considering that, yes, we have that history of violence and all malpractices that have come out for 2010, 2015, and now 2020. Isn't this a growing culture within the brothers and sisters of the same party? Would we expect that maybe by now you'd be collaborating and saying that let's look at the bigger picture, 2021, other than infighting?
I want to tell you that initially it is survival for the fittest one right now. As a party, we have a responsibility to unite our candidates and our people after the elections have been conducted. But because serving in parliament, it is a separate honor which every individual would wish to have for himself or for herself. For now, as a party, we don't interfere. We only create that there must be a leveled ground. 2, the processes must be transparent. And 3, the security must be provided for everybody, for the voters to demonstrate their choice. Once those have been done and elections have been done, when you lose, and you lose in a modest manner, in a way, in a transparent manner, the loser will be satisfied and will go back knowing that I'll give it another shot, perhaps another time, but then they can be rallied to go behind the person who has won. But if somebody wins fraudulently, then this gives us a bigger problem of dealing with the issue of many independents, something that we did not wish to have this time because it distracts the multi-party arrangement that we always supposed to do, to practice.
Some of your candidates are culprits of disobedience of standard operating procedures of fighting COVID-19. They've been seen holding rallies, holding mass gatherings without people putting on the SOPs, maintaining the SOPs, and they go on under the watch of you, the leaders, and the Electoral Commission. Yes, I know they've tried to, Electoral Commission has tried to come out to speak to them, but still these continue day in, day out without anyone getting bothered.
If you look at the guidelines that have been put up by the Electoral Commission, the first thing that must be observed, even at the polling centers, are the COVID-19 guidelines as issued by the Minister of Health. Social distancing, washing and sanitizing, use of masks, and people not demonstrating or gathering anywhere. That has been deliberately and specifically provided for. When you come to the rallies, the temptation to break the regulations has been very high. And the party administration has been wondering, are these people in connivance with the security organs? Because the president has given a directive. The Secretary General, Right Honorable Kaswel Lumumba, has reiterated it to say nobody should converge. Those who converge should be arrested. And then a DPC or an RPC defies. Now we begin wondering at the party headquarters, are those people conspiring with the lawbreakers in order to enable them to win? But at what cost are they doing it if it is true they are doing that? Because it puts the candidates at risk, it puts the voters at risk, and it puts the innocent people at risk. Besides that, COVID is very expensive. Just testing alone. And so far, people are not paying for their testing. It has been the government paying for it.
But now they have to.
And this is a very expensive thing that is taking place at the cost of government. So, to us as a party, that's why we appeal to the security organs. That let them comply with the laws because they are specific. The second one is to appeal to the candidates themselves that you need to participate in the elections when you are alive. Reckless conduct can easily cost candidates' lives and the innocent voters.
Talking about these security agencies, urging them to maintain and put into practice these SOPs, but we've also seen some of the candidates, Parliament approved and allowed them to have guards, armed personnel, having the police and the army. But yesterday we saw the spokesperson of the UPDF, Brigadier General Flavian, Biekwaso coming out and saying that yes, we've been seeing you, the candidates, abusing these guards that were given to you. NRM has not spoken about this because some of them have been even pictured guarding the money, participating in the brutalizing of the supporters. I don't know why aren't you coming out also before even the UPDF to say this is wrong?
No, it shouldn't be us because the NRM is not in every place where the candidate is. But the police and the law enforcement should be. So the first call of conduct should be the police. And I want to thank the spokesperson of the military. I've just seen on social media that letter which he wrote to come up strictly to ensure that there is sanity and people do not abuse. For us as NRM, we're just going to reiterate, because as a party, we don't have mechanism apart from relying on the security organs to ensure that this one is enforced. But if the Right Honorable Secretary General would come up to say, arrest the ministers if they are breaking the law. And you heard that Honorable Tangaro, although he's not a minister, he's a very strong NRM supporter and a former minister.
Was arrested and released.
But he was arrested. But that is a communication that the president and the COVID guidelines is something that everybody must comply with. So for us, we are just going to encourage the army to do their work and to ensure that they level the ground so that there is no person who takes undue advantage because of the facilities that has been put to his or her opportunity just by abusing them in order to win over a competition unfairly.
Honorable Emmanuel Dombo, when you look at this violence that is coming up day and day, you see yesterday we saw Honorable Hanifa Bangirana Kawoya showing the bruises that she has already gotten. You saw another MP from Eastern Side having the violence that was meted on him. When you look at all these acts, what do they speak about the spirit as of within the party as we move 2021? Because these are all not signs that we should have before the election day.
The first thing to demonstrate is that NRM is very attractive.
When people are being beaten?
Everybody is fighting to belong to NRM. To us, that is a very good indication that really NRM is a popular party. Because you look at other parties, they are calling for nominations and people are not coming up to pick nominations. For us to ask for nominations, and we get over 10, 20 people competing for the same position.
And they end up beating
under
themselves.
NRM. That shows you that it's a popular party. The second one, the level of violence shows that people are violent. They would want to go anything if they are not constrained. So the responsibility of us as a party, even in the meeting we had yesterday under the chairpersonship of the Right Honorable Secretary General, she decided to write to the Inspector General of Police to say this is a heightened process. The polling center is a village. And the police may not be having actually enough personnel to deploy at every police station. It may require that perhaps the Inspector General of Police may have to seek reinforcement from the other associated forces in order to ensure that we have sufficient elections and in a free and fair environment. There are hotspots that have traditionally had problems. The NRM, what we could do was to write to the police identifying the hotspots, which previously have been gazetted by the party, but also there have been emerging new hotspots. And the level of deployment in these areas should be high. It even becomes complicated in situations where either the relatives of the military or the relatives of the politicians themselves are candidates. You may find a wife, you may find a candidate who is a military person himself or herself. That one must be restrained, not to use his previous history with the army in order to compromise the process. The wife of a military person, or the son of a military person, or somebody who may have relatives within the process. These are the challenges the party will have, but I'm sure the commander-in-chief, who is also the chairman of NRM, is already watching this and is going to take specific action to ensure that NRM primaries do not become violent and this violence spills over to the future elections because it affects it directly.
Let's also speak about the influence of money in the politics, the commercialization of politics, because we've seen many people saying that even within the SEC elections, even these primaries, people are spending billions and billions of money on campaigning. This issue of money, isn't it putting others out of the contest? And why would someone spend billions in just a primary?
Why they would spend billions in primaries is a question those spending should answer. But whether money can be avoided, it is also not possible to avoid the use of money
to bribe
in the elections, because people must travel, people you must facilitate your campaign agents when they have come together. You must give them food, you must give them what, and this happens in most countries. When you go to developed countries, they have stringent laws that govern fundraising and the use of money in campaigns. Right now, people are not conducting rallies, so people must have money in order to pay for the adverts on TVs. What is wrong with the money is if people use the money to outrightly bribe the voters or to give materials that are likely to compromise or induce the outcome of the electoral process. This one is definitely bad because it becomes outright bribery. It is prevented in the law. And when somebody has evidence, somebody can have a successful litigation.
Have you received some of those complaints from your candidates as these people are bribing voters, bribing our members down in our villages and districts? Have you received such complaints from these candidates?
During the second elections, we received the complaints from some of the candidates that some candidates were using more money. So it became difficult to evaluate where you say some people are using more money than you, even you, who is making the claim. If your accusation is that you used lesser money, but the question was used for lesser money to do what? If it was lesser money to bribe, then that also becomes illegal, because the illegality is not in the amount of money. The illegality is in the use of money to try to induce the outcome. But where we have seen on social media a member of parliament outrightly heaping a heap of money before voters, and they even take pictures, this is definitely outright abuse. And I don't think any person would want to be proud of such a practice. That is demeaning the voters, first of all, the people who are going to vote you. But also, you are trying to demonstrate that you in parliament you have gotten, you can amass as much money, and you come and demonstrate it in the way you are using it. Or, even if you are not in parliament before, if you use such amount of money, people must begin asking that will you give them the service they require, if in the first place the vote has cost them that amount?
Some have already spoken out that last time I was eating, of course they are not from your party, last time I was eating, now it's time for us to eat together in this next term. But away from that, the complaints, the fighting, the violence is indeed going to break the spirit and loyalty of some of your party members, because just the other day we saw Godfrey Nyakana Mot, who was vying for the mayor's seat for Kampala, has already withdrawn. Of course, he's citing personal reasons, but we know that during the SEC elections, he was not happy with the way it was conducted. We've seen also some, like those who were vying for Eastern, those who were vying for Eastern chairperson, vice chairperson, Honorable Mukula, Mike Mukula, and Sanjay Tana, going to also the party chairperson. There is this growing conflict within your party members. Isn't it going to break down the loyalty of these members?
Have you ever participated in an election? If you haven't, I want to tell you that when the risk of losing power, of losing influence becomes imminent, human beings are likely to conduct themselves in an civic manner. That is why there are regulations, in order to restrain, because human nature alone is very tempting to do anything because somebody is looking for survival. And abuse is possible. But usually whenever there is an election, there is a hearing process that we go through as a party. And that is a mechanism that has been deliberately developed. For instance, you saw when Honorable Babu was contesting to become vice chairperson of NRM. When he opted out, he had an opportunity to interact with the chairman in order to be enthused as a person, but also in order to be consolidated so that his withdrawal is not seen in bad faith by those who are voting. Secondly, you have seen the rebel MPs. Even when they were called rebel MPs and they disagreed with the party in parliament, you have seen them coming to agree with the chairman of the party. And they were readmitted and allowed to participate to sing for the flag after making some commitments. You have also seen people who have previously disagreed or fought coming out. If you don't do this in politics, then you are failing your part as a politician. And that's the reason you are seeing other parties disintegrating, when incidentally the NRM is becoming stronger and stronger, because politics is about talking, compromises, and agreements.
Those MPs, rebel MPs, so-called rebel MPs you're talking about, they were given a condition of apologizing in writing. Have they? If that was the condition given to them, and they have accepted they are participating in the primaries, then they must have fulfilled that condition, I'm sure. In 2015, I would drive you back 2015, we saw, when we had this violence, we saw many were discontented. They ran as independents. And you're risking going back the same route. The party members will be deciding, let me go against the party norm, the party culture, and I still contest as an independent in the coming elections. Are you afraid about that?
I wouldn't want to speculate about what is going to happen.
What drove them then are the same signs and actions that are driving them. Yes, for you didn't run as an independent, but what drove them then are the same things that are happening today.
What is true is that if the internal process is not transparent, this forces the aggrieved persons to try their options at independence. That naturally happens. And that is why, to us in the NRM, right now, all effort is geared at ensuring that the process is transparent and people are satisfied with the outcome. What happens after the elections, let us wait until after Friday, and then we'll look at the outcome. Then we'll assess on how best we can respond and how we can counter the challenges that we face as a party.
You already instituted an investigation as the NRM into the money that you say could have disappeared during the special interest groups elections, the youth, the elderly, and people with disabilities. How far have you gone with these investigations, and how much money do you anticipate to have been stolen or embezzled?
Right now, the party became proactive and informed the public that there is something that is brewing within the party. That is something that we proactively decided to do as a party, to inform the public, because this should have been a breaking story by the newspapers. Unfortunately, we pulled the rope, the carpet below their feet. Secondly, we tried to be as transparent as possible to tell them that the case has been reported to police. And the police is helping us to do an independent investigation, so that whoever is involved, whoever's name is involved, has to answer the police, but also has to go through the entire criminal process as it is. One thing I'm happy about is that once the Secretary General cracked the whip and ensured that the people who are responsible were arrested, some of them, people started refunding the money. Just yesterday we were informed that the RDC of Mukono, our admin in Mukono, refunded about, in Buikwe, I think Buikwe, refunded 80 million shillings. One of the admins, 80 million. Some admins in Busoga have refunded the money, and they have started paying the money to the intended beneficiaries. some of the admins have implicated some of our staff, but that is for the police to investigate. I wouldn't wish to mention anybody, but for us as a party, we shall leave the police to do their work, and once the results come out, then the Secretary General will take action.
So what happens when someone returns the money? Does the investigation still continue with that person, or you say now we have settled our differences?
No, that becomes evidence that actually what we said was right, and then the administrative decision to be taken, that one is the preserve of the Secretary General, who through the structures of the party will undertake an administrative decision. But the criminal element, now it will depend on whether the available evidence is enough for prosecution or not. But I want to tell you that even in NRM, we are human beings. When somebody really refunds all the money and he pays it back, we may revert to the administrative decision, because the cost of now pursuing a criminal case may be expensive, may be challenging, but that will be evaluated depending on the advice of the DPP. Because it is the resident state attorney who will peruse the files to let us know whether it is possible to prosecute the cases or not prosecute the cases.
Let's speak about this Friday's primaries, specifically away from the SOPs you've already mentioned. What exactly are you having in plan? From, say, for example, from 7 a.m., what's the plan like for Friday? For someone who is just going to participate in the vote, for a candidate, for any concerned person for that Friday election?
According to the guidelines that have been issued by the NRM Electoral Commission, on the voting day, people are supposed to congregate at 10 a.m. in the morning. Once the congregation has been done, people are supposed to check to do the COVID, to become COVID compliant. At every village, they have provided money to buy soap and water and also sanitize for the people who are going to participate in the elections. People have been asked specifically to come with masks, to do social distancing, but also to avoid hugging and shaking hands. Secondly, once they have done the COVID regulations and complied with them, they have checked the register, then they will move to the demarcated area for the elections, where either the candidates will be lined up, or the candidates' representatives, or the candidates' portraits. And they should be they should be put in such a way that a voter will be able to understand that either this is Dombo, whom I want to vote for, or this is Dombo's representative, or this is Dombo's portrait. And once the elections start, all elections are supposed to start from 11 a.m. There is no election that must be conducted before 11. If an election is conducted before 11, it will be nullified. Those are the regulations that have been put up by the Electoral Commission. And the elections run between 11 and 3 p.m. There are two positions that are going to be elected. The position of the woman MP of the district and the position of the constituency MP. And the order is such that you begin with the woman MP position. Once you finish the woman MP position, you proceed, they declare the results for woman MP, then they'll proceed to vote for the constituency MP. And once that one is done, and they have filled the declaration forms, there is no tallying that is going to take place at the sub-counties. All tally sheets, all declaration forms after elections are going to be transmitted to the tallying center at the district. Therefore, there is no tallying at all at the various sub-county levels, because previously the tallying at the sub-county levels has been a source of conflict and mismanagement of the electoral process.
Thank you so much. But as I wind up in just 2 minutes, I want also to draw your attention, because you are the party in power. Some people, in the fight against COVID-19, some people are saying that the $65 that have been introduced by Minister of Health, which is 240,000 shillings, is quite so much for an ordinary person who would go for testing, would want to be tested, or even for organizations and corporate organizations which would want to test their staff. You are the government in power, you are the party that is ruling this country. Is this a thinking that is not going to affect the fight against COVID-19?
First and foremost, I like the journalists for the questions that you ask. Unfortunately, you don't help in providing the solution. Because I would return the same question, that under the circumstances, what would we do? Because don't just assume we are a party in government, true. But in the circumstances that people must test, and the government has a limit beyond which cannot go. And yet there may be individuals who want to test and have capacity, and yet they have not given provided by an opportunity. So in such a situation, why would the government constrain itself by saying it must pay for all tests when it cannot afford? Because it is a budget. So in the circumstances...
Why I'm asking you that question is, government or the party or state house has been giving out money for different causes. You've been doing this, and in the fight against COVID-19, health is number one, economy is number two, and leisure is number three. You've been giving out the stimulus package to different organizations. Why not put, since health is number one, why aren't you giving health, say, let's give this part of the money, part of the stimulus package to health to do mass testing, other than making people be charged?
You see,
that's the issue.
Is COVID the only health problem that government is funding? Government is funding malaria, government is funding measles, government is funding HIV programs, government is funding maternal health, government is funding hospitals to manage so many diseases. So, when COVID came in, this was an interruption and a new issue which came in. Nobody had prepared for it. Even in the major developed countries, nobody has a solution. The only thing we would ask government perhaps is try to find out, in the world, isn't there a quicker test that can be cheaper than the $65? If that test is available, then the earlier it is introduced, the better. But I want to tell you, there is no single government, not even the government of America, has the capacity to test all citizens for free and then pay for it, for instance. Because I want to tell you that me doing a test now, and I'm negative, does not prevent me from contracting COVID the following day. So how many times can government afford, even if it chose to do that? It cannot afford, it is very expensive, and every alternative that can enhance the process of testing should be encouraged, be it private or by the NGOs.
Thank you so much, Honorable Emmanuel Lumala-Dombo, who is the Director of Information, Communication and Publicity within National Resistance Movement. Thank you for sparing your time and sharing with us.
Thank you very much, and thank you, NTV, for giving us this opportunity to interact with the people.
All right, we shall keep tabs on the NRM primaries that are happening this Friday. In our subsequent news bulletins, we'll be having much more coverage about this and much more from today until even after the primaries. This is Stephen Mbidon Fefes Wechibuga, been here in Bugorobi with the Honorable Emmanuel Dombo, the certified economist and also the Director of Communications. Back to you in the studios for now. I'm out.